Still Snoop Dogg and D.I.
Hello and welcome to Villanova Tip Time. I'm your host, Chris Notaro. We are here on Wednesday, December 20th, if you can believe it, just 5 days till Christmas, as the 7-4 Wildcats roll into Omaha for their Big East season opener, taking on the number 12 Creighton Blue Jays. Creighton sort of looking interesting, looking awesome at times, looking definitely fallible at times. We'll get much more into them and the matchup in a little bit, but really excited to be here. As you all well know by now, Villanova Tip Time is presented this season by Homefield Apparel as part of the Nova Insider Network. Promo code Nova Insider, get all those last-minute Christmas gifts ordered. And like we said before, I think it's cool that we've been doing this show, we've been doing this program, and other members of the Nova Insider Network have been working really hard on their content. It's cool to have a sponsor at all. It's cool that it's a cool sponsor. Their bomber jackets, we've been seeing a ton out in the wild. Even our guy Trevor from the Full 40 sort of getting in the backdrop during the UCLA game, which was pretty cool, wearing the bomber jacket. But that's out there. Maybe not in time to get for Christmas. I don't want to speak on behalf of their urgent shipping, but they've got some goodies out there for the Big East season coming up, which we're opening tonight. And really excited that we've got Nova basketball back. It's been a long December already, and Nova hasn't played in 10 days. Really, obviously, an up and down sort of emotional ride of this season so far, and plenty more of that to come as we've got sort of an interesting schedule here to contend with in the coming 3 to 4 weeks, where I tweeted about this yesterday. We've got 2 games in 4 days now. Then we've got another week and a half off. Then we again have 2 days and two games in 4 days. And then we have about another full week off. And then I think things start to get pretty normal once you get after that stretch. But it's a lot of stopping and starting for a team that's admittedly struggled to find their rhythm. So you kind of have pros and cons, right? I think they've no two ways about it. You could very well argue that this team has slumped pretty hard at times and really underperformed on the offensive side of the ball from just an efficiency perspective. I think while we can all expect that it's going to take a team with a lot of new pieces like Villanova, time for those guys to gel, and you want to see them playing better basketball as the year goes on, and you want to give grace and leeway for that. I think the complete lack of offensive efficiency and the amount of just sort of brick chucking that's happened at times has been really frustrating for everybody to watch, and rightfully so. But we've also seen flashes of just real dominance and flow once this team gets it cooking against some pretty good defenses. And honestly, having notched a couple wins that look like they're going to hold the test of time. Now, it's still only December, so we don't know where UNC is going to be at the end of the season. We don't know where Memphis is going to be at the end of the season. But both of those teams have trended upwards since Villanova took a victory against them, almost a month ago now in the Bahamas. But you talk about the Atlantis swoon in the Bahama and then the Philly boon, as Nova just couldn't get out of its own way, losing 3 games in a row, the first 2 of which were kind of a struggle. The St. Joe's loss, which if you read Eugene's pregame preview on VU Hoops, he actually drew parallels between the St. Joe's matchup and this matchup that we have against Creighton tonight, which I think provides an opportunity for the Cats. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But you really saw St. Joe's play a really good game, sort of felt like they were playing their best game, and Nova was certainly not, and fell there. The Drexel game is like, I don't even want to talk about the Drexel game anymore because I don't know what happened. It was infuriating that it happened, but you sometimes I guess it's going to happen. Kansas State, you can kind of forgive, non-con power conference team on the road, whatever, but still, from the highest of the highs coming out of Atlantis to sort of feeling like, where do we go from here with some of these bad losses? It's been nothing short of stressful. I don't know if he wants to name to the comment, but a friend who also creates Villanova content pointed out earlier today, like it's just stressful. It's been stressful at times. And so I'm trying to take a step back and look at how excited I am for the Big East basketball to be back. We've already seen kind of madness, right, between what was going on with, Marquette getting sort of just dump trucked last night at Providence. And then again, just now, I don't know where the UConn-Seton Hall game is. I don't have an eye on the current score, but Seton Hall was leading at halftime and very much contending in that game. while I think everybody had gotten comfortable thinking that the Big East was going to be, this sort of a predictable year with these big three at the top, I love the fact that we're sort of starting in chaos mode, because that, I think, is the Big East at its best. When you have teams able to do like what Providence has done with their home court advantage, even maintaining that across coaches. It's just good for the conference overall. So lots of up and down, but mostly excited that Big East basketball is back. And Nova's got an opportunity for a really nice quad one victory tonight, to kind of further cement their, everybody's thinking about resume with all these wins and then the losses that are on the bad side. I think most people's first thought there is going to start to get into resume, especially as we turn the page on the year. And so to start the conference season with a big Q1 opportunity on the road, you love to see it and you want to see the Cats capitalize. One of the other things to talk about, we've got a new Tip Time studio coming in. So hence the reading for the really weird lighting. Just recently moved into this room. I'm working on a laptop on like a folding table right now, but over the coming week or two, I've got a lot of new equipment coming in. I've got a lot of new tech coming in, new lighting, probably going to go with a new background behind me. So really exciting kind of renovations going on at Tip Time World headquarters. So you can see that kind of evolve over the coming weeks. And hopefully there's a long enough time in this sort of next break where I can have it mostly complete by the time we come back on January 3rd. I want to do a little round robin around the roster and talk about the fellas, and just kind of go around the team and kind of what to expect. Not even what to expect. I honestly, I waffle back and forth in preparing for Tip Time shows. Sometimes I script it more fully, and I kind of go off of a talking points, almost like teleprompter. Sometimes I kind of just wing it and I want to talk about something because I've got a lot of thoughts in my head. After this most recent layoff, I kind of wanted to just do a round robin through the team and what we've been sort of seeing. And the first thing that comes to mind as I sort of run through all these players, Eric Dixon's an interesting one to start with. And I'm going to start there because I think he is probably going to be a major focal point for Creighton tonight, especially when you look at sort of the results of the last couple of contests against him. Creighton big man Ryan Kalkbrenner has played in those games and has played well in those games. I think something that most Villanova fans are salty about was, I think it was Atlantis, where they had the ESPN and play-by-play guys who like clearly didn't really know that much about Nova. They were just on the, sort of the feast week assignment. And they were saying how Kalkbrenner had gotten the better of Eric Dixon last season. And I think that's somebody that just looked at a box score and just assumed that, they did that work against each other. But you could argue that Eric Dixon had better games. And when Kalkbrenner and Dixon went head to head, Eric Dixon got the better of Kalkbrenner more than the other way around. So you have to figure that he is going to be the focal point of the game plan, for specifically on defense for Creighton, especially with Justin Moore again being out of this game tonight. So with Eric Dixon kind of coming off a quiet performance from UCLA, he's had some fantastic games this year. Of course, he won the most outstanding player of the tournament in the Bahamas. So he's had some fantastic glimpses of being that sort of like almost all-American caliber player, to be completely honest, but that he's also had these games where he's kind of gone quiet. You feel like maybe he was being a little too unselfish. But the X factor has been when Villanova has played well, it has generally been through Eric Dixon. And so you have to figure that Creighton is going to be keying in on that with their game plan tonight. So you wonder, and you want to see the Villanova coaching staff and players be able to adjust to that, knowing that that's likely what's going to be coming here, especially again with Justin Moore out. Tyler Burton, I think I feel like I'm going to say feast or famine quite a bit because I think a lot of our players have shown sort of major streakiness through the season, and the question has become at times like, is it streakiness on the players' part and going on these super cold droughts? Are there issues with the offensive scheming on what the coaches are putting on the floor? Is it a little bit of both at times? I think so. And Tyler Burton is sort of another in that list of guys who at times has looked awesome and unstoppable. And he's looked every bit the part of the sort of A-10 player of the year that he is, and somebody who's testing the NBA draft waters. But there are other times where, he's just not as involved as we need him to be, and or again, falling victim to that sort of inefficiency, which I think is really going around the team. And I think that may have to do more with some of the scheme issues. Jordan Longino, I feel like every episode we've talked about Jordan, we talked about what a pleasant surprise he is, sort of getting back to that early form. He's a guy you expect to step up pretty big in Justin Moore's absence. So looking for him to make that impact. TJ Bamba has at times, I've heard people sort of say he's their new favorite Villanovan, and he's looked like it. And then there have also been times where he's kind of looked a little bit like a runaway train. And again, I'm going to keep saying the word efficiency. I think there have been games where, his efficiency metrics are fairly poor because of sort of what seems like almost a rushed nature. So seeing if he can kind of clean that up and harness that a little bit. I want to talk about Hakeem Hart, who I think has really come on late with strong performances recently, several highlight reel plays, including one that was on the defensive side of things, which you always love to see when people are making highlight-worthy, SportsCenter-worthy plays on defense. But I think Hakeem Hart has really sort of endeared himself to Villanova fans, myself included, and looking to see him only get an increasing role. Our man Tommy G, if you haven't checked out Tommy Godin's new show, The Mainline Minute, good quick hitter recap show. I know I've plugged it a couple times, so if you watched me before, you've probably heard me talk about it. Definitely something worth checking in on. He releases that a couple times a week, I think is the goal. But one of the things, he's been talking about Hakeem Hart for a while, since before it was cool. And so I kind of had the warning from him, and it's been cool to see that kind of come to fruition because he was spot on there. I could talk about literally every player on this lineup because as we've talked about from the beginning of the season, this is a pretty deep Nova roster on paper. You want to see this team able to sort of not only compete, but be able to really finish in that top 4 or 5 of the Big East. There's no reason why this team on paper can't get it done, even without Justin Moore playing. We don't want to use injury as an excuse. I think that was a very common talking point last year. And while it may have been true, it's definitely not fun to talk about. It's definitely not fun for fans to watch and have to fall back on that excuse. And I think Nova's deep enough on paper not to have to rely on that with Justin Moore being out. Also have to shout out the Villanova PR machine for Justin Moore having a day-to-day injury now for several weeks plus, being speculated most likely that he's, again, with this sort of wonky schedule, it would make sense that they maybe hold him out. If they held him out today, it probably makes sense for them to hold him out on DePaul because then he gets another, full week and a half off to rest up and recoup. And the schedule for Nova isn't the hardest until we get into mid-January. And then there's like a crazy stretch where we play Marquette twice in a few weeks span and UConn in the middle somewhere. And you're going to need the guys ascending, playing better basketball through that period. You're going to want Justin Moore as healthy as you can get him for that period of time. So now's the time to rest him up if he needs it. And it's going to provide an opportunity for, all the other guys on the team to really step up and solidify what the rotation is going to look like as we get later in the year. And Villanova basketball's favorite talking point, or one of them, is to be playing the best basketball of the year as you get later into the season. And I think you've already heard sort of definitely the loudest of the angry mob of fans sort of getting upset at times, and rightfully so at times. That's only going to get louder as the team's performance remains inconsistent. So what an opportunity for guys with Justin Moore out to kind of step up, solidify their spot in their rotation, and then fingers crossed we're actually seeing this Cats team play the best basketball as the year goes on, because a team with this many transfers, like, that's just what you want to see. You got to give them a little bit of grace in the beginning, but that grace period runs out now that we're in conference season, and it's going to run out really quickly, the more inconsistent we see it from here. So really quick, because I expect that this game is going to start a few minutes after the hour, so I hadn't been going for a hard cutoff of 9 p.m. We'll talk a little bit about Creighton and this team, which comes in, I don't want to say unchanged, because they lost a couple of big players in Nemhard and Kaluma, interestingly enough, transferring out, sort of one of the weirder, I don't want to say weirder, but like the transfer portal era is here, and it's the wild, wild west. And guys definitely have to make the decision that's best for them. I'm very pro player as far as the players having more sort of rights and earning ability and they traditionally had, but I'm also fairly against the lack of structure that the NCAA has put in place here. You've heard quotes and conversation in the mainstream lately saying like basically there is no system, which it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out from like a quality and a fan perspective over time. But I think you have interesting situations where Creighton is a solid program with a good incoming team next year and two really important pieces to try to transfer out. Maybe that's just they have more flexibility and over what they see as potential fit issues. I'm not even going to speculate. But fact of the matter is they're down two big players. They added a couple of impact transfers. And this year they're basically playing as a three-headed monster through Baylor Shireman, Ryan Kalkbrenner, and Trey Alexander, who are all averaging 15-plus points a game. And then they've added a handful of transfers to really complement those guys nicely. But I don't want to say that Creighton is some like big, bad, undefeatable team. They're a really interesting team just as far as the parallels to St. Joe's, which I mentioned Eugene called out in his pregame write-up. And they're going to shoot a ton of threes. They play pretty solid defense. They don't turn the ball over. So it's going to be a really tough matchup depending on what you see on the perimeter from the Cats tonight. I think that's really the first imperative to the game. When is it not? But I feel like right now we're very much in the shoot 'em up, sleep in the streets moment, and we've been sleeping in the streets. And this goes for both sides of the ball tonight because Nova has been noticeably slumping from the field, and you want to see the approach change. You don't want to just see a zillion bricks getting tossed up. You want to see some better scheming, and of course you want to see those shots start to fall. But also, like I said, Creighton can make this a very long night if they're even slightly above average. This team shoots 38% behind the arc, which I think is good enough for statistically like top 25 in the country, but they shoot a lot of threes. So like I said, it could be a very long night, and Nova fans are no strangers to having a very long night against a hot shooting Creighton team. So really, really important to see what the Cats can do on the perimeter and balancing that inside with how efficient Kalkbrenner is going to be inside. And Creighton's going to be keying in on that Eric Dixon matchup, as I already said. So as a fan of Villanova basketball, like I'm excited to sit down and watch this game tonight. But I think that's how I feel in my heart. But in my head, I also feel like I'm about to sit down for a very stressful couple of hours as we're looking for a lot out of this Nova team. We're looking for improvement in a lot of areas that have been much discussed over a long couple of weeks off. So there's a lot of that kind of pent up energy coming into this game. And you really hope that you see that Villanova team that you want to see in the first few minutes. Because I think, as I saw a lot of people mention on Twitter today through the general discourse, is like, you're kind of going to know in the first few minutes or the first like quarter of this game which Nova team you're getting tonight, and really want to start the season off with that big Q1 victory on the road in Omaha. But for now, I think it's about time to load those beverages up and find your favorite seat. We're going to be back for the DePaul game on Saturday, so I'm not quite going to say Merry Christmas yet. All right, I'll give you an extra Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, but we will see you again on Saturday, on Christmas Eve before the DePaul game. But for right now, ladies and gentlemen, it's tip time.